500,000 miles. That's 20 times around the Earth. Most engines surrender long before hitting that mark. Worn bearings, cracked blocks, seized pistons. But not these, the 10 indestructible truck engines everyone ignores. These are the workhorses that outlasted their competition by hundreds of thousands of miles. The engines mechanics buy for themselves, the power plants that turned ordinary trucks into generational assets. And almost no one talks about them. When buyers shop for trucks today, they chase horsepower numbers, towing capacity, 0 to 60 times. But the smartest buyers ask a different question. Which engine will still run when the odometer rolls past 300,000 miles? The answer is almost never the engine with the most power. It's the engine with the simplest design, the thickest block walls, the most conservative tuning, the engines that prioritize durability over every other metric. Over the next 20 minutes, I'll walk you through 10 truck engines that proved one thing: longevity beats horsepower every single time. These engines powered trucks through decades of abuse, towing, hauling, neglect, and they kept running. Some are legends, some are forgotten. All of them deserve respect. Let's start with number 10. Hino Diesel, JDM Workhorse. To understand indestructible engines, you must first understand the Japanese commercial diesel philosophy. Hino Motors, a Toyota subsidiary, has built medium-duty diesel engines since 1942. Their J08 and J05 series engines power delivery trucks, buses, and commercial vehicles across Asia, Australia, and increasingly North America. The J08E VC, a 7.7-liter inline 6-turbo diesel, produces 260 horsepower and 660 pound-feet of torque. Cast iron block, forged steel crankshaft, overhead cam with direct injection. Hino engines are designed for 1 million kilometers. That's 621,000 miles. Not as a theoretical maximum, as a design target. Fleet operators in Japan routinely report J08 engines exceeding 800,000 miles with only scheduled maintenance. Oil changes every 15,000 miles. Valve adjustments every 100,000 miles. The engine's weakness, parts availability in North America. Service networks are limited outside major metro areas. But if you can access parts, the J08 is one of the most durable medium-duty diesels ever built. Consumer Reports equivalent data from Japan's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism shows Hino diesel failure rates below 0.3% annually in commercial fleets. That's exceptional. GM Iron Duke, I4, the Iron Duke. The name alone tells you everything. General Motors' 2.5-liter inline 4, produced from 1977 to 1993, was never designed to be exciting. It was designed to survive. 151 cubic inches, 4-inch bore, 3-inch stroke, compression ratio, 8.25 to 1 in early versions, rising to 9 by the end. Output ranged from 85 to 110 horsepower depending on the year and application. The Iron Duke powered everything: Chevy S10 pickups, GMC Sonoma, Jeep CJ and Wrangler, Pontiac Fiero, even the Grumman LV mail truck. The block was cast iron, thick, heavy, overbuilt for its displacement. The valve train was pushrod actuated. 2 valves per cylinder, hydraulic lifters, simple, reliable. The Iron Duke's weakness? It was slow, painfully slow. 0 to 60 miles per hour in the S10 took over 13 seconds. But it didn't break. Owners routinely report 300,000 to 400,000 miles with minimal repairs. Head gasket replacement around 200,000 miles. Timing chain replacement around 250,000 miles, and that's it. Consumer Reports data from the 1980s and 1990s shows the Iron Duke consistently ranking in the top 10% for reliability across all 4-cylinder engines. Mechanics loved it because it was easy to work on. Owners loved it because it refused to die. The Iron Duke wasn't fast, it wasn't smooth, but it was indestructible. Chevrolet Stovebolt, GMC Inline 6. Before the small block V8 became America's engine, there was the Stovebolt 6. Chevrolet introduced the overhead valve Inline 6 in 1929. It remained in production in various forms until 1990. That's 61 years. The most famous version, the 235 cubic inch Inline 6, powered Chevrolet and GMC trucks from 1941 to 1962. 3.5-inch bore, 3.9-inch stroke, compression ratio, 6.5 to 1 to 7.5 to 1 depending on the year. Output, 90 to 140 horsepower. The Stovebolt earned its nickname from the slotted head bolts used throughout the engine. They looked like stovebolts. The name stuck. The engine was simple: cast iron block and head, push rod valve train, splash lubrication in early versions, full pressure lubrication in later versions. The Stovebolt's weakness? Low compression meant poor fuel economy and limited power at altitude, but the engine's simplicity made it nearly bulletproof. Farmers and ranchers ran Stovebolt-powered trucks for decades. 500,000 miles was not uncommon in agricultural use. The engine tolerated neglect, missed oil changes, overheating, dust, mud, and it kept running. Mechanics from the 1950s and 1960s report that Stovebolt engines rarely needed internal work before 200,000 miles. Valve adjustments and timing chain replacement were the primary maintenance items. The Stovebolt 6 wasn't powerful, but it was eternal, and it taught GM how to build engines that lasted. Ford 7.3 liters V8. Most of this list focuses on old engines, proven designs with decades of data, but one modern engine deserves recognition: the Ford 7.3-liter Godzilla V8. Introduced in 2020 for the Ford F-250 and F-350 Super Duty, the Godzilla is Ford's largest gasoline V8 since the 460. 445 cubic inches, 4.2-inch bore, 3.98-inch stroke, compression ratio 10.5 to 1. Output 430 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, 475 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. But the Godzilla wasn't designed for peak power. It was designed for durability: cast iron block, forged steel crankshaft, powdered metal connecting rods, aluminum heads with port fuel injection, no direct injection, no variable valve timing, no cylinder deactivation. Ford deliberately kept the design simple. The Godzilla's weakness? It's heavy. The engine weighs over 500 pounds. Fuel economy is poor. EPA estimates 14 city, 18 highway in the F-250. But early reliability data is exceptional. Consumer Reports data from 2020 to 2024 shows the Godzilla with a predicted reliability score of 4 out of 5, above average for a new engine. Owner forums report trucks exceeding 150,000 miles with zero engine issues. Fleet operators using the Godzilla in commercial applications report failure rates below 1%. The engine is too new to have 500,000-mile examples, but the design philosophy is sound. Thick block walls, conservative tuning, simple systems. The Godzilla is proof that modern engines can be built to last if the manufacturer prioritizes durability over complexity. Cummins 6.7 liters. The Cummins 6.7-liter ISB is the modern evolution of the legendary 5.9-liter 12-valve. Introduced in 2007 for the Dodge Ram 2500 and 3500, the 6.7-liter ISB produces 370 to 420 horsepower and 850 to 1,075 pound-feet of torque, depending on the year and tune. 408 cubic inches, 4.2-inch bore, 4.88-inch stroke, compression ratio 17.3 to 1, cast iron block, forged steel crankshaft, aluminum cylinder head, high-pressure common rail fuel injection. The 6.7-liter ISB is more complex than the 5.9-liter 12-valve. It has emissions equipment, diesel exhaust fluid injection, diesel particulate filter, EGR system. These systems add failure points. The 6.7 liters weakness? The emissions equipment requires maintenance. DPF regeneration cycles, DEF system failures, EGR cooler failures. But the core engine is bulletproof. Owners routinely report 400,000 to 600,000 miles with only scheduled maintenance on the engine itself. The block is overbuilt. The crankshaft is forged. The connecting rods are designed for 1,200 pound-feet of torque, far beyond stock output. Consumer Reports data from 2010 to 2024 shows the Cummins 6.7-liter with above-average reliability scores. Owner satisfaction ratings consistently exceed 80%. Fleet operators report the 6.7-liter ISB as one of the most durable diesel engines in the one-ton truck segment. The emissions equipment requires attention, but the engine itself is nearly indestructible. Cummins designed the 6.7-liter ISB for 1 million miles in commercial applications, and it's achieving that target. Toyota 1GR FE 4.0 liters V6. The Toyota 1GR FE is the engine that powered the Tacoma, 4Runner, Tundra, and FJ Cruiser from 2003 to 2024. 241 cubic inches, 3.7-inch bore, 3.7-inch stroke, compression ratio 10:1. Output 236 to 270 horsepower, depending on the application. 266 to 278 pound-feet of torque. The 1GR-FE is a 60-degree V6 with dual overhead cams and variable valve timing on both intake and exhaust. Aluminum block and heads, forged steel crankshaft, timing chain. The 1GR-FE's weakness? It's not particularly powerful. The Tacoma with the 1GR-FE feels underpowered when towing or climbing grades, but it doesn't break. Consumer Reports data from 2005 to 2024 shows the 1GR-FE with a predicted reliability score of 5 out of 5, the highest rating. Owner forums are filled with reports of 300,000, 400,000, even 500,000 mile examples with only scheduled maintenance. The most common repair? Timing chain replacement around 200,000 miles. That's it. No head gasket failures, no rod bearing failures, no crankshaft failures. The 1GR-FE is conservatively tuned. Peak torque arrives at 4,400 RPM. The engine is never stressed in normal use. Toyota designed the 1GR-FE for global markets. It had to survive extreme heat, extreme cold, poor fuel quality, and neglect. And it does. The 1GR-FE is proof that modern engines can match the durability of older designs, if the manufacturer prioritizes longevity over peak output. Chevrolet Small Block V8. The Chevrolet Small Block V8 is the most successful engine design in American history. Introduced in 1955, the small block remained in production for over 50 years. Over 100 million units were built. The most famous version, the 350 cubic inch small block, powered Chevrolet and GMC trucks from 1967 to 2003. 4-inch bore, 3.48-inch stroke, compression ratio 8.0 to 1 to 9.0 to 1 depending on the year. Output ranged from 145 horsepower in emissions-strangled 1970s versions to 255 horsepower in later fuel-injected versions. The small block's design is legendary. Cast iron block, 2-piece rear main seal, pushrod valve train, hydraulic lifters. The block is compact. The engine is lightweight for its displacement, and it's easy to work on. The small block's weakness? Early versions had weak valve springs and marginal oiling at high RPM. But in truck applications, where RPM rarely exceeded 4,500, these weaknesses didn't matter. Owners routinely report 300,000 to 500,000 miles with only scheduled maintenance. Timing chain replacement around 150,000 miles. Intake manifold gasket replacement around 200,000 miles. Consumer Reports data from the 1970s through the 2000s consistently rated the small block V8 as above average for reliability. Mechanics loved the small block because parts were cheap and plentiful. Every auto parts store carried small block components. The small block V8 powered America for half a century. It towed boats, it hauled lumber, it plowed snow, and it kept running. The Chevrolet small block is the engine America trusted, and it never let them down. Dodge Cummins 5.9 liters 12-valve diesel. The Cummins 5.9-liter 12-valve diesel is the engine that built Cummins' reputation for indestructibility. Introduced in 1989 for the Dodge Ram 2500 and 3500, the 12-valve produced 160 to 215 horsepower and 400 to 440 pound-feet of torque, 359 cubic inches, 4-inch bore, 4.7-inch stroke, compression ratio 17.5 to 1, cast iron block, forged steel crankshaft, direct injection with a Bosch mechanical injection pump. The 12 valves design is brutally simple, no electronics, no sensors, no emissions equipment in early versions. The injection pump is mechanical. Fuel delivery is controlled by a throttle cable and governor springs. This simplicity is the engine's greatest strength. The 12 valve's weakness? It's loud, it's slow to spool, and early versions produce significant black smoke under load. But it doesn't break. Owners routinely report 500,000 to 1 million miles with only scheduled maintenance. Injection pump rebuild around 300,000 miles. Valve adjustment every 100,000 miles, and that's it. Consumer Reports equivalent data from diesel fleet operators shows the 12-valve Cummins with failure rates below 0.5% annually. The engine tolerates abuse, overloading, overheating, poor fuel quality, neglect. It keeps running. The 12-valve Cummins is the diesel engine that proved American trucks could match the durability of European and Japanese commercial diesels. Mechanics call it the million-mile motor. And they're not exaggerating. The 12-valve Cummins is the diesel engine everyone should want, but most buyers chase newer, more powerful options, and they regret it. Ford 300 Inline 6. The Ford 300 Inline 6 is the engine that powered America's work trucks for 3 decades. Introduced in 1965, the 300 remained in production until 1996. It powered Ford F-Series trucks, Econoline vans, and even some industrial applications. 4-inch bore, 3.9-inch stroke. Compression ratio, 8.8 to 1 to 9.0 to 1. Output, 150 to 155 horsepower, 260 to 265 pound-feet of torque. The 300 is a long-stroke engine. The stroke is nearly equal to the bore. This design produces massive low-end torque. Peak torque arrives at just 2,000 RPM. The engine pulls like a diesel. The 300's design is simple. Cast iron block and head, pushrod valve train, 7 main bearings, timing chain. The block is thick. The crankshaft is forged. The connecting rods are heavy-duty. The 300's weakness? It's slow. 0 to 60 miles per hour in an F-150 took over 15 seconds. Fuel economy was poor. EPA estimates 12 city, 16 highway. But it doesn't break. Owners routinely report 300,000 to 500,000 miles with only scheduled maintenance. Timing chain replacement around 200,000 miles. Head gasket replacement around 250,000 miles. Consumer Reports data from the 1970s through 1990s consistently rated the Ford 300 as above average for reliability. Farmers and ranchers love the 300 because it tolerated neglect, missed oil changes, overheating, dust. It kept running. Mechanics called it the tractor engine because it ran like a tractor. Low RPM, high torque, eternal life. The Ford 300 Inline 6 is the engine that proves simplicity beats complexity every single time. Toyota 22R. The Toyota 22R is the most indestructible truck engine ever built. Introduced in 1981 for the Toyota pickup, the 22R produced 97 to 112 horsepower and 129 to 137 pound-feet of torque. 144 cubic inches, 3.6-inch bore, 3.5-inch stroke, compression ratio, 9.0 to 1 to 9.3 to 1, cast iron block, aluminum head, pushrod valve train in early versions, single overhead cam in later 22RE versions, timing chain, carburetor in 22R versions, electronic fuel injection in 22RE versions. The 22R's design is conservative. Peak horsepower arrives at 4,800 RPM. Peak torque arrives at 2,800 RPM. The engine is never stressed. The 22R's weakness? It's underpowered. The Toyota pickup with the 22R struggled with highway merging and hill climbing, but it doesn't break. Consumer Reports data from 1985 to 1995 shows the 22R and 22RE with the highest reliability scores of any 4-cylinder engine. Owners routinely report 300,000 to 500,000 miles with only scheduled maintenance. Timing chain replacement around 200,000 miles. That's it. No head gasket failures, no rod bearing failures, no crankshaft failures. The 22R is the engine that built Toyota's reputation for reliability. It powered trucks through wars, through deserts, through jungles, and it kept running. The Toyota 22R is the legend of the Toyota pickup, and it's the most indestructible truck engine everyone ignores. The 10 indestructible truck engines everyone ignores. These engines proved one thing: longevity beats horsepower, simple design beats complexity, conservative tuning beats peak output, and thick cast iron beats lightweight aluminum. If you're shopping for a truck and you want it to last 300,000 miles, ignore the horsepower wars. Find one of these engines, buy it, Maintain it, and it will outlast everything else on the road. Subscribe for weekly truck protection playbooks. This is Gastail.